I did want to get to the blockbuster Mikko Rantanen trade on Friday because naturally, I think 3 seconds after the trade, I did tweet out, "What does this mean for Mitch Marner and the Toronto Maple Leafs?" First and foremost, your general initial impression that was a monster, Daddy.
Yeah, it was. It's just a monster player in Rantanen, and it's weird now because it seems like they had talks and everything, and obviously Colorado decided we're too far apart. We don't have the money to spend, and we're not willing to spend the money on this guy when we already have the McCars and the McKinnons of the world, and they moved on and they said, well, we're done with him this season. We're not going to have him anymore, but we're going to see what we can get back for a player of that caliber. You do not want to lose them for free. And to get Natchez back, I mean, that's pretty solid. He's got a bit of term left there, and you can get some out of him. What is he making, 6.5 or something? That's probably half of what you'd have to get Rantanen for. Although Rantanen's a better player, no question, like a perennial 100-point guy. But now Rantanen's kind of saying, well, geez, I was blindsided. I think I would have taken a discount, all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, the Colorado Avalanche, that's their decision to make, and they decided to move on and take what they could for the guy. That's the bed they're going to have to live in. And why exactly, all the details of how they got to that, no one's ever going to know. We're not in that situation, but blockbuster move, no doubt. I actually think Colorado's getting away pretty good, considering they must have thought there was no way they were going to re-sign him.
For sure. And I think it was kind of interesting too with the whole internal cap thing. Like, I really respect that. They're like, right now, nobody's making more than Nathan McKinnon, who I believe is at 12.6. Cale Makar, the next contract, I think, is 2 years away. He's obviously going to get a jump in pay. The salary cap's going to be higher. I get that, but I don't mind that. I also think it's easier to make a trade like this, Rosie, when you've won a Stanley Cup in the last couple of years and there's less pressure. There's still pressure with that team. You still have guys in the core of their careers, guys like Nathan McKinnon. But it's more like take a one step back, 2 steps forward, right? When you look at this approach, it was either do this, make a trade in general for Rantanen, or just use him as an own rental and lose him in free agency if you're not prepared to pay him. I think the crazy thing about this whole thing is the negotiation on the initial contract for Rantanen. All he had was a 9-team no trade. When you compare that to some guys, all the guys in the Maple Leafs got full no movement clauses. Like, that's the sidebar story for me, is I Rantanen only could pick 9 teams he didn't want to go to.
Yeah, I know. You'd think that the organizations would be a little bit more like, when you're giving out these contracts, these guys are massive contracts. And yeah, I don't mind a modified no trade clause like that. Like, hey, I'm not going to this shithole. I couldn't even
Exactly.
imagine living there. I'm not playing for this organization. I can't even imagine doing that. I get that. But as far as just like, why not just hold out? You're giving, if you're giving a guy the bag and the max term and everything else, can you not just, do you have to give him that too and make sure you're completely hamstrung? It does make it frustrating, but a guy like, there you go, there's an example. Rantanen only had a 9-team no trade clause. Okay, we can work around that. There's 32 teams. But yeah, I mean, at the end of these contracts of the big ones, it's tough when you have absolutely no power over your own franchise because you've given all of the power to the player. I mean, you already give them the money in the term. Try to hold on to some power yourself for down the road. And Dubas did absolutely not do that, and it just makes it difficult at the end of these contracts. But you know, I don't think, like, you like the way they're not giving him more than McKinnon. He's not worth more than McKinnon, but and I'm not saying this is the situation, but if you sign a 8-year deal on the first year and it's for X, and say you take a little bit longer term for a little bit less AAV, by the end of that contract, if someone else who's maybe a number 2 or 3 guy on your team, he's going to surpass you. Like, Makar is going to surpass McKinnon. Doesn't mean he's better or more valuable, but that's just the way that the world works with inflation and with caps coming up and everything else. It's not like the best player on your team has to be the highest paid throughout the entirety of a contract. There's going to be some overlap there.
Yeah, for sure. And look, the situation I think is a lot different, like pertaining to Mitch Marner in Toronto. Number one, he's got the full no movement clause. But like everything I hear, he wants a deal that'll make him the highest paid player on the team. And that's more than Austin Matthews because the cap goes up. And right now, percentage of the cap is a big thing. And I mean, whether people like it or not, he is not going anywhere, right? So I think the similarities stop at the point where Marner's in that same realm as Rantanen, but the Leafs can't do anything about it. Again, it gets back to the point of giving these guys full no movement clauses.
Yeah, you're completely hamstrung. You can't do
Yeah.
anything. The guy's in the driver's seat, and it's kind of annoying. But you can't blame Mitch Marner for that. He's looking out for himself. He sees it from his own point of view. He believes in himself and says, "I am going to help win this team the Stanley Cup. This team's better with me on it. You can pay me this because this is what I'm worth. This is my body of work. You can see it. Here's the comparables. You can do all that." I don't blame him for it one bit. I would do the same thing. But it's the organization's, it's up to them to decide, okay, but the position that we've put ourselves in with these players and what we've seen and the history that we have, do we continue on this path? That's their deal. Like we've just said, they have constructed this team to put a lot of eggs in these baskets of these high octane players. Is it the formula that's going to win? Have we seen enough to realize, no, we have to balance our team a little bit more? We can't do that. Therefore, the only one that we can, I mean, we've had this conversation during the Willie contract and during the Matthews contract, and it's just where we sit right now. The last guy to talk about is Mitch. He's the guy that's coming up for renewal. Are you going to continue on this path? Do you believe in it? And we've seen, under Shanahan, a lot of playoff series and not a lot of wins. So you just have to decide, are we going to continue on this path, or do we need to break it up and spread it out? If so, you need to do something with Mitch. It's just the reality of the business. I'm not knocking Mitch for him wanting the bag or for him thinking he's worth this or his comparables. Hell, your career is short. Do what you can and you make what you can. That's the reality of it. It's just, there's two sides to the story.
Patience is a virtue. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.